Hi, Maria. Welcome to Action a Go Go.
Hi, Derek. Thank you so much for giving me this time and this space and support. Super excited. A very special one for me.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure. And I was reading up a little bit on your background. You're Colombian, correct?
Yes, I was born in Ecuador. So I
Okay,
am born and raised in the coast of Ecuador in Guayaquil. My parents, like all my family, they're Colombian, so I'm 100% Colombian blooded. But I was born and raised in the coast of Ecuador.
cool. I'm sure you're hot-blooded. This is sort of a theme on my show. I keep interviewing Colombian people, end up talking about my family or people with Colombian history. So I know this is going to be exciting either way.
Yeah, especially because last minute, and this was not supposed to happen, we made Josie Colombian. That's why I say I'm Josefina, because there's no Colombian named Josie ever. But the cool thing is being able to represent and bring the Colombian flavor because she is Colombian. Josie, I made her Colombian last minute because they wanted me to speak my true accent. And I feel like nowadays Latinos are kind of trendy, kind of, hot and fun. So even though it was hard to justify what she was doing in a place like Mississippi, it was better for them to allow me and give me the freedom to bring kind of like my flavor and my soul.
Excellent, excellent. Of course, we're here to talk about off the grid. So you're jumping right in. How did you get involved with the movie? What brought you to the script?
Well, it was the middle of the strike, so we were getting very little opportunities. If anything, like almost none. And I couldn't leave the country, go back to my Latin American countries to do what I did because I do get work in Colombia, Mexico, Dominican Republic. I'm lucky enough to have diversified, but now I couldn't because I was in the middle of my citizenship process, so I couldn't leave the country. So it almost felt, well, it felt like it felt for every other American actor out there that didn't have another option. So it was it was a moment of anxiety for sure. And I didn't have enough cash flow to kind of survive. I had just finished purchasing my apartment, my investment property, which made me feel really proud. But at the same time, oh my God, now I can't even go to a restaurant. It was a very like the lowest in that sense, like lifestyle wise. I think it's the most that I've had to limit myself in my whole life. So it was crazy that the most abundant situation of my life, which is the most important project, my crossover project, my English, my first American movie with a female lead character, happened during that time. But then a year happened. A year went by where since the strike was suspended, all the other projects were priority again. The chronological projects that were, that booked the actors, and Josh had another thing, so we had to wait for him, and that changed everything from locations to even the story. The script went through a lot of different versions and evolved in different ways that I almost felt threatened to the point of like maybe they're just going to replace me or this character might even not exist. So it was a lot of anxiety throughout the whole year until the very end that Johnny really stood for me. I am just going to give all the credit to him because a lot of actors were changed actually. And he just saw something in me and I couldn't believe it because, he's worked with Al Pacino, Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, and he saw me, a girl that had, never done anything in English, and he just wanted to defend me because he couldn't conceive the movie without me. And he said this many times, and I'm just levitating every time I hear that because I'm like, oh, finally, after 9 years of not feeling seen at all in this super like violent and crazy market, the most competed market in the world, I get seen. And it's hard to compare the magical moment in my life with anything else that I've experienced. So imagine how it feels now that's actually a fact and it's going out in 2 days and we're finally releasing it. So it's just surreal.
That is real. That's an amazing story. That's almost more drama behind the camera than in front. That's amazing.
Yes, indeed. You got it right.
Yeah, so this is an awesome project. You did work with Johnny Martin. In terms of your character, how did you work with him, or did he just let you roll with it? What was that process like with Johnny?
It was crazy because he wanted to give me depth because obviously this is a character and their relationship, there's so much mystery and mystique, and they kind of find each other holding secrets together, and that's kind of why they are connected, even though they haven't spent that much time together. But sometimes you don't need that much time or that much like talking to connect to someone. So he wanted to give me that backstory. But in the beginning, I mean, in the beginning she was Italian, then she was Spanish, then she became a girl from Mississippi, a Southern belle. So imagine for me, like the trip, because I do like to work, and I worked with coaches and then dialect coaches and acting coaches to create and develop a character with a backstory that was coherent. But then towards the end, the very end, where I was already a girl from Mississippi and I had my issues, and there was a reason why I also didn't feel like committing, and I also kind of didn't feel like I belonged there, and I thought I was meant for bigger things and a bigger purpose, and she was frustrated and this and that. But then last minute she became Latina. So I had to make up the story myself. But by then, Johnny had shown me so many different versions of the script. He even asked for, my comments, and he even did some changes respecting and believing my opinion. And I've just felt so valued in every step of it. Then towards the end, when I had to change Josie to Josefina, I had so much I felt so comfortable, and I had so much creative freedom, and I already felt like that, like I was respected and valued like that, that I just created it, obviously grabbing a lot of stuff that we've discussed about the essence of the character, but I added my Colombian flavor to it without consulting because there was no time for that. So in
Awesome.
the end, it was a mix of everything and a little bit of picante.
Of course. Well, I got to talk about the elephants in the room. You got to work with Josh Duhamel, Greg Kinnear here, and of course Ricky Russert does an amazing job. Just real quick, what was it like working with such a huge star? I mean, he was in the Transformers films. He's been all over the place. He was just with J Lo. Now he gets to work with you, right? What was that like for you?
Yes, I mean, it was so crazy. I was so, in the beginning, I was like kind of intimidated. Like, I didn't know what to expect. My biggest stars that I worked with are Latino stars, and I'm sorry, but they don't get the level of exposure. I mean, these are like world stars. And Greg Kinnear, Oscar nominee. I've seen him in so many movies. Like, it's just a lot. I was a little overwhelmed. What I did to kind of, prepare was not just watch their movies, and I've watched many of them. I kind of got a little more obsessed. Also watched Johnny's movies, a lot of them, just to check his style, how he directed and everything. But also I saw a lot of interviews of like Greg and Josh and Ricky and Michael. Michael and me were kind of starting in this, so there wasn't that much content to kind of get an idea, but we talked a lot. Johnny got us in touch so we could develop this almost like motherly relationship. But with Josh and Greg, I just saw a lot of interviews, and I could tell how sweet they were, how down to earth they were. But maybe they were doing a character for the interviewer, and then you found out there were actually like big egos, which I actually expected. And it was just so crazy. But then I realized, oh, Johnny is so smart. What he did with every one of us is he called us when he knew that he wanted us to work with him to find out how we were as human beings. If we loved our families, if our morals were in the right place, like everything. He just really needed to find out if he was working with good human beings, because he is very much so like a very, very special person. So when I got to meet Josh, for example, I already kind of knew that he was just this funny, super down to earth guy that kind of lived, I mean, a little like his character, like he's a real life MacGyver, and he loves the forest and he loves being off the grid. So it was so interesting to share. We did Call of Duty, the same game, not together, but in different seasons. So we had a lot of stuff to talk about. But when the humor came to place, that's where we really connected. When we started laughing about stupid things, I mean, it was like, oh my God, I love you. Like, this is just going to be great. And if anything, I'm going to have to run away from you when I have to get into like deep, emotions, because you're just like a funniest dude on earth. So that was really cool to realize that he was just someone that you could be so free with, and so I could be myself with. But that's how I felt with every single one of them. I mean, Greg was so generous. Like, I was in the middle of a not crying scene, but a very like intense scene when he's like describing me all these sorts of like violence like violent things that he could do with the broom, whatever. I don't want to spoil it for people, but I had to be very like in touch with my emotions. And this light went off and everybody was ready to cut and the technicians were going to come, and he just stood there and he stood on the table and he fixed it himself so that I didn't lose my momentum. And then he went back to me. Johnny wanted to start from the beginning. He was like, no, she's there, stop. Like he just took control of the whole thing,
Wow.
just to allow for me to continue in that like moment of emotion. And then he just overdid, like he just, because the camera was here with me, so he could
Wow.
just say whatever, so he exaggerated what he had to say so that I came back to that moment of stress and anxiety. And wow, nobody, especially like, I mean, he's like 60, like he just stood up on the table and did stuff that he got out of his way to help me continue with my emotion. And I'll never forget that. And I have many stories like that. Like it was just crazy how everyone was just focused on making the other person shine. And you don't get that. I mean, I've worked for 20 years and I'm not talking about my specific market, but you don't get that in general. People want to shine like themselves. They're not concerned about your choices. Josh just treated me like a star. Like I felt one on one. Like I really felt just as respected and valued from the director and from my colleague. And that's unforgettable. That makes it even more surreal.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I wish we had more time. Maria, thank you so much. It was great to hear you had a great experience, and this is a great opportunity for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Of course, the movie does come out June 27th, 2025 in theaters and on demand. Congratulations. You're a shining star for Colombia and Ecuador, of course, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Derek. Thanks for your time and your support.
This is Derek Scarzella. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching or enduring. If you're feeling generous or even just mildly entertained, please like, subscribe, and comment to support the channel. I know you've got opinions. Don't even try to deny it. Drop them in the comments. Argue with me. Argue with each other. You are officially invited to engage in glorious internet combat. You can also find me on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Instagram's awkward little brother, and the granddaddy of them all, Facebook. Oh, and while I've still got your attention, my novels The Vicious Game and Knuckle Crack Bone are up on Amazon. They're unapologetically gritty, punch-you-in-the-face crime stories with rave reviews. If you give them a shot, I'd be honored. Thank you again for watching. Rest well, hero. You're home.